let's talk about input and output with respect to your console application. So as a console, you have this this console window open. With respect to that console, all of the display that comes out of your program to that console, what we consider as the output, right? Input would be, in this case, your keyboard entry. So if you were to type something, this keyboard entry for whichever characters that you entered will go straight into what we call C in, and C out is what comes out of your computer into your console application as a display, right? So in your IOStream libraries, you have two parts. One is the input and the other one is the output. So if we're to use C in, C out, which actually stands for, even though this is pronounced as C out, this stands for characters out, and this stands for characters in. So the characters being, coming from your keyboard, being outputting into your console application. So if you do C out, and notice that these piping operators, the direction is really matters. In fact, if you had the directions in the incorrect format, you'll get what's called a compilation error. So if you were to print your hello world to the console, which by this point I wish you have done it already on your own, is you have to issue cout, and cout is part of the using standard, right, namespace std standard libraries, and this prints the entire string hello world out there. And notice that there's a couple of things. One is the semicolon here. Semicolon is the indication that this is an entire statement that ends right then. Okay, a statement is a sign for your program to evaluate that entire line that ends with this semicolon. Here, there's a cn. Cn is the characters in. So what you need to do is to declare, right, this variables up front called first name, and this first name will then be populated with the value that you enter at runtime. So cin, when triggered, right, because this is a statement, is simply going to pause the entire execution of your code, waiting for user inputs. So you'll notice in your console application that the cursor simply just stays at the line where this cin is called or invoked. So this reads characters directly from input. If user does not input anything at that moment in time, this will just wait. Your cursor will just wait there indefinitely. But once user types something in, that something, that collection of the character, will then be entered or then shipped into this container, first string variables called first name. Okay, so this is a quick overview of the basic input and output for in C++. Let's look at another more advanced variation of it. So what you see here is we talked about this. Enter your first name. You have to declare your variables and read the characters directly into that variable buffer. So in this case, this string is what we call buffer, which is a collection of characters. In the absence of a new line, so let's talk about this too. So you'll see a couple of keywords. One of the most frequently used keywords is what we call end L, right? End of lines. So this is the same as a new line. Okay, so this is ASCII characters that you'll see in the ASCII table. And L is simply a macro for declaring this. This is the same thing, right? Similar to null, right? And ULL. And ULL actually has a pound defined to 0, the character 0, or the integer 0. So let's say if you declare this age integer, and if you're typing something in there, that something from your keyboard has to be an integer, right? Otherwise, this age is, right? Let's say if you type in some string, right? This is going to give you an error. So you got to make sure that these are type matched. The second part is the ability to read multiple inputs from your console or keyboards. The way that you do that is you would chain your characters inputs with 2 pipes, right? So in this case, one after the other. And by default, if you do this from your keyboard, you gotta make sure that the character that needs to go into first and characters that need to go into second, they are basically separated by a white space, right? When I say white space, either 1 white space or you can have 10 white spaces. It doesn't really matter. So you just make sure that your first, this entire block of first goes into this guy right here. It's somehow separated, and this is the second part, right? This is the second, this is the first. Okay, So second actually goes here. You got to make sure the space between, there is a space between first and second, or multiple spaces in between. Okay, so this is what I meant by white space. It should be a plural, parentheses S. Okay, so that's a quick overview of our input and outputs in C++.